Tennessee made the opening basket of the game, and then the Bulldogs came to life and had a big lead going into halftime. Tennessee clawed back in the second half, and then at the end, it was Mississippi State that was able to get it done, winning at home over number 5 Tennessee. A huge win last night for Mississippi State basketball. We talked a lot yesterday about the role of Tolu Smith and whether when you have a dominant player, you try to kind of route the ball through him. Tolu Smith's stat line last night, 23 points on 7 of 10 shooting and 9 of 12 from the free throw line. He also had 4 rebounds and assists, turned it over 3 times. It was a good night at the gym for Tolu Smith, and it appeared as if Mississippi State believed they had an advantage there, and there was a concerted effort to get the ball to Tolu where he was a man among men.
I mean, if you remember on yesterday's show, I said that the key to this game was going to be because you knew you could rely on Tolu, and you felt like you could rely on Josh Hubbard, so it was going to be on to somebody else to show up in the scoring column, and absolutely nobody did that, but State won anyway.
Josh Hubbard, the freshman, in 28 minutes went 8 of 15 from the field. He hit 5 of 10 from 3, 4 of 6 from the line, 25 points last night for Josh Hubbard. Game. And so Mississippi State's Tolu Smith and Josh Hubbard combined for 48 of the Bulldogs' 77 points in the game.
So State got the winning edge from guys doing other things. DJ Jeffries in particular, not a great scoring night, only 4 points for him, but 6 rebounds, 5 steals. He had a block, had a few assists. He was really good last night. Cam Matthews doing sort of the same thing. Shaq Moore and Deshaun Davis kind of giving you the same thing. I don't think you can rely on getting 50 points a night from Hubbard and Tolu Smith. Somebody is going to have to step up offensively at some point. But
I agree.
For State last night, they got out to the big lead. They were able to grind it out. Tennessee, give them a lot of credit, came out with a really good game plan in the second half, put the pressure on Mississippi State, full court pressed them basically the entire half, forced a bunch of turnovers that they turned into points. But State was able to do enough to win this game. Tennessee was 5th in the net. They've dropped to 6th. State moved up to 27th in the net today. And now another opportunity. Alabama is now number 5 in the net, and that's who you'll play on Saturday. This game for me was a little bit of a perception changer. I wasn't really sure what Mississippi State was. I thought that they played really poorly last Saturday. You still have that Southern loss kind of lingering in the background. This was a game that proved that Mississippi State can go out and play with any team in the country. They beat a top 5 team. They led 35 minutes out of 40 in this game. They got to find some more offensive consistency throughout the lineup. But with Smith and Hubbard, when they're humming, it's going to be tough for teams to beat Mississippi State.
And defensively, Mississippi State did not do a great job limiting probably the 2 best players and certainly the 2 best shooters for Tennessee. They did a really good job limiting everybody else. Dalton Connect had 28 points on 10 of 18, including 4 made threes. Zakai Ziegler had 26 points on 9 of 15 with 4 made threes. Both of those guys played 37 minutes in the game. Connect also had 6 rebounds. But Jonas Adu had 9 points. And after that, Josiah Jordan-James had 3. Santiago Vescovi had 2. And then they played, Toby Awaka had 4. And 3 other guys played but did not score.
If you had given me $100 that said pronounce Connect's name correctly prior to last night's game, I would not have won that money from you. Would not have won that money. I would have Kinnicht? I don't know.
Is the
he
K
was
silent?
really, really good. Necht? He was really good, and hit a lot of key shots. And State's perimeter defense these first couple of games, although the numbers overall were good for State in terms of perimeter defense last night, they did give up some 3 balls there to Connect, and that's a little bit of a worry because now you're about to play again. Looking ahead, you're going to play an Alabama team that's shooting almost 40% from behind the arc. Mark Sears is shooting 50% from behind the arc. So State didn't do a good job in the perimeter defense against South Carolina either. So they got to shore that up going into SEC play. But I didn't realize this. And State's had some wins over top 25 teams, but that was State's first win over a top 5 team since 2002. Now, like I said, State's had some big wins in there. They've been in the NCAA tournament and won the SEC championship in that time frame. But that just gives you an idea of how big a win that was for Mississippi State. They needed a signature win, and I feel like they got it last night.
In terms of numbers, the crowd looked good but not great. But in terms of energy, it looked great.
Correct. Yeah, and from what I can tell from talking to people, obviously I wasn't at the game, had to do the live show last night. The people that said that it was a late arriving crowd, got there a little late, but once they got settled in, it was a pretty good crowd. State announced today that the Alabama game, all individual game tickets are sold out, so they expect a big crowd Saturday with the Alabama Crimson Tide coming in.
And most students should be back on campus, so you get the full student crowd that'll be in as well. It should be really, really good. That'll be a bit of a hornet's nest that Alabama is walking into.
Heck yeah, it should be.
How creative will Mississippi State students be? With Alabama coming in, I'm talking about signs, chants, and obviously how creative as it pertains to Nick Saban news will State students be on Saturday?
Yeah.
Or
if Brandon Miller were still there,
news.
I'd be interested to see where they would go with
maybe
that.
Maybe just as well that he's not.
Probably not, yeah. There will probably be there will probably be a mention of Nick Saban from the student section at some point, I would imagine. Yeah, I think so. The students getting back is a big part of this as well. Hopefully, they'll all stay in their seats or at least stay within the confined student section area until the clock runs zero, and then you have to make a decision. Alabama's such an interesting team. They're 10-5, and you would think, okay, that's probably not very good. 5 losses in non-conference. They're all quad 1 losses. They lost 3 straight games to teams that were ranked in the top 10 at one point this year.
They are currently number 5 in the net.
Currently, yeah, because they're 2. I think they're 1-5 quad 1. They've played 6 quad 1 games out of 15 already. So that's impressive. But at the same time, they haven't until this game against South Carolina. They weren't able to pull the trigger and get a win in any of those games. So Alabama's an interesting team. Sears is obviously one of the best guards in the conference and maybe the country. They average 91 points a game. I mean, they're really good. But in conference play, they've scored 78 and 74. Had some real trouble there with Vanderbilt on opening night.
Last night was a good night for the SEC in terms of net rankings. Alabama's at 5. Tennessee only drops 1 spot. I mean, that was a quality loss for Tennessee at Mississippi State. It's a quad 1 loss, so they go from 5 to 6. Auburn stays at 7. Kentucky has moved up to 17. Mississippi State goes from 34 to 27. Texas A&M, with their road loss a couple of nights ago against Auburn, moved up 2 spots. South Carolina's up 3 spots despite their loss. Florida dropped 7 from 49 to 56, and Ole Miss moved up 11 from 68 to 57. We talked about that yesterday with Ole Miss in terms of the net. If they win some games, they're going to move up. And they did that. And it wasn't just the Florida win. It was also the win that we referenced earlier in the Big 12 Conference, because Ole Miss has a win against UCF this year, and last night UCF knocked off Kansas. And so that was good for Ole Miss as well in terms of building its resume. There are good things that are happening. Good things. Let's see. UCF is currently 76 in the net. So because that's on the road, Ole Miss needs UCF to be in the top 75 in the net for that to qualify as a quad 1 win.
Jump up a spot, yeah. And would give Ole Miss a significant boost in the rankings if it turned out that happened. So, Borky, did you watch all of it? Did you kind of watch that one from beginning to end, or once you got home? Anyway?
Once I got home, yeah, I did. And, their text line's blowing up with the story of the night, the banana guy. That's what everybody wants to talk about today, is the banana guy. But, no, State weathering the storm, and,
if you don't know what that story is, there with 1/10 of a second left in the clock, one of the students dressed in a banana costume raced onto the floor all by himself, and he was arrested.
But the South Carolina game, State kind of blew it, right? There was late missed free throws. There was a turnover. And last night, it kind of felt like the same thing was happening, but they made the plays this time. And, it's kind of an elementary way to look at it, but the difference in execution when it mattered most in Columbia versus last night, all the other issues aside, lack of a third scorer, whatever, that stood out, though, is when they needed it the absolute most. They actually got it this time, as opposed to Columbia, and that's the difference in winning and losing.
And it was a win, and it was a really, really